So I was looking at the calendar this morning, January 25th, 2026,
Ah, yeah.
and it struck me that we are firmly in the second half of the 20s now. It's funny, if you had asked me 5 or 10 years ago to sketch out a prediction for the pop culture landscape of today, particularly regarding the specific group of people we're discussing, I would have been dead wrong.
You wouldn't be the only one. I mean, if
Wow.
we look at the betting odds from back then, the smart money was on a total media saturation.
Completely. We are talking, of course, about the Jolie Pitt children, or as they are referred to in this new report, we're looking at simply the Jolie family. I mean, think about the ingredients here.
Right.
You have two of the most photographed humans in history as parents, a massive brood of children who grew up literally inside the flashbulb glare. The script for 2026 was supposed to be, reality shows, high fashion modeling contracts, maybe a messy pop album, definitely a TikTok empire.
It's the Nepo baby industrial complex.
Yeah.
We've seen the blueprint 1,000 times over.
1,000 times.
The children of fame usually become the currency of fame. It's almost an economic inevitability in Hollywood. You inherit the name, you monetize the following.
But we are looking at this deep dive article, The Jolie Children, a legacy of radical privacy. And the reality is, well, it's jarringly different. The author calls their status in 2026 shocking. But I want to push back on that word a little bit.
I get that.
Shocking usually implies scandal. It implies a DUI or a leaked tape.
And that's where our conditioning comes in, right? The shock here isn't action, it's inaction.
It's restraint.
Exactly. It's restraint. The report details a group of young adults who are practically ghosts in the digital ecosystem.
Yeah.
In an era where we have monetized every second of attention, they have done something statistically improbable for people in their demographic and their tax bracket. They've opted out.
Okay, but is it really that noble? Or is it just that they are wealthy enough that they don't need to hustle? I mean, it's easy to be private when you don't need a brand deal to pay rent.
That's a fair, cynical take. And wealth absolutely buys the gatekeepers, no question. But consider the psychological pressure. We aren't just talking about money, we're talking about relevance. For Gen Z and the generation following, existence is often defined by digital visibility.
Right.
So to voluntarily erase yourself from that narrative, that requires a level of discipline that goes beyond just having a trust fund. The source notes that they are rarely seen at Hollywood events. No red carpets, no premieres. They aren't influencers.
That distinction is so interesting. Usually there's a pipeline.
A clear pipeline.
You start as a +1 to your famous parent at the Oscars, then you get the modeling gig for a luxury brand, then the small acting role. It's a soft launch into fame.
Exactly. It's an apprenticeship in celebrity.
Hmm.
And this article suggests Angelina Jolie essentially dismantled that pipeline. She didn't just hide them. She raised them outside the Hollywood system entirely.
And you don't mean just geographically, right? Because
Yeah.
they spent plenty of time in LA.
No, not geographically at all. Culturally.
The source uses this phrase, radical privacy. I want to drill down on that. What makes it radical in 2026? Lots of celebs try to keep their kids out of the papers.
Radical implies a rude level change. So, standard privacy is asking the paparazzi to blur a toddler's face.
Okay.
Radical privacy, as is described here, is constructing an identity that doesn't require external validation from the public sphere. It's not just avoiding cameras, it's avoiding the desire for the camera. The report explicitly mentions they aren't tabloid regulars or desperate for fame.
Which ironically makes the public even more obsessed with them. It's the law of scarcity.
To a degree, yeah. But because they give us nothing, no chaotic tweets, no public feuds, no get ready with me videos, the public eventually just hits a wall.
You can't write a narrative about a void.
Exactly. The media needs fuel, and the Jolie children just aren't providing it.
Okay, let's talk about how this actually happened. Because you can't just tell a teenager, don't go on Instagram and expect it to work, especially when the whole world wants to follow them. The source details a pretty specific parenting strategy Angelina employed.
Right. And if you strip away all the Hollywood glimmer, the core pillars mentioned are stability, education, and global awareness.
Global awareness sounds like a brochure for a study abroad program. What does that actually look like in practice for this family?
Well, think about the context of Angelina's career. She wasn't just making movies. She was on the ground in conflict zones working with the UN. She brought that reality home. The text mentions that children were exposed to realities, cultures, and languages far beyond Los Angeles.
So it's really about perspective.
It's an antidote to narcissism. I mean, if your entire world is Beverly Hills, then being an actor seems like the most important job on earth.
Sure.
But if you've spent your formative years seeing refugee camps or understanding geopolitical struggles, the idea of walking a red carpet might feel, well, trivial.
It shrinks the ego.
It recalibrates the baseline of what matters. And the report notes that in 2026, their interests align with this. They're pursuing fields like international studies, social causes, and this is the nuance: art and filmmaking.
What filmmaking is Hollywood, so they aren't totally out of the industry.
But look at the distinction the source makes: creative paths on their own terms.
Okay.
There is a massive difference between wanting to be a star, which is about being looked at, and wanting to be a filmmaker or artist, which is about looking at the world.
One is passive, one is active.
One is being the object, one is being the subject. It's a huge shift.
That's a crucial distinction. It seems like they are positioning themselves as the observers rather than the observed.
Which is a power move. Actors are at the mercy of the edit. Filmmakers, writers, activists, they control the narrative.
This brings us to a part of the source material that we really need to unpack carefully: the turning point. The article explicitly frames the divorce from Brad Pitt not just as a tabloid event, but as a structural shift in the family's life.
It does. And it's very careful to avoid the gossip and focus on the dynamic. It calls the split a painful chapter, but crucially a turning point.
A turning point toward what?
Toward emotional safety and structure. And this is where the analysis gets fascinating. When that split happened, it was global news. I mean, it was everywhere.
Unavoidable.
Totally. The potential for that to shatter a family is enormous. But the source suggests the reaction was to close ranks.
It says the focus became emotional safety. To me, that reads as building a wall, a fortress.
Or sanctuary. When the outside world is chaotic and speculative, you have to create intense internal order. The source describes their life in 2026 as defined by resilience and a close bond with their mother and each other.
I wonder, though, and this is me playing devil's advocate, is there a downside to that intensity? If the bond is that tight, does it make it hard to let anyone else in?
That's the classic critique of the us against the world mentality, for sure. But the report frames it as unity rather than isolation. It contrasts the turmoil of earlier years with the maturity they display now. The argument here is that the lack of paparazzi intrusion allowed them to heal and grow without public pressure.
That phrase, without public pressure, is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
A lot.
Because we've all seen what happens when celebrity kids work through their trauma in public. It usually ends in rehab or a very messy reality show season.
Precisely. We feel entitled to watch their breakdown. We consume their trauma as entertainment.
Yeah.
By denying us that access, Angelina essentially bought them the space to process the divorce like human beings rather than plot points.
So the shocking reality of 2026 is that they are fine.
Yes. The shock is that they are well-adjusted. The boring, healthy outcome was actually the hardest one to achieve.
I want to circle back to the identity piece for a second. The source calls them global citizens, not Hollywood royalty. That feels like a very deliberate rejection of a title. Hollywood royalty is a status symbol. People would kill for that label.
It is a status symbol, but it's also a job description. If you are Hollywood royalty, you are expected to perform.
Oh, interesting.
You are expected to inherit the throne, keep the dynasty going, give interviews, sell products. By rejecting the title, they are rejecting the obligation.
It's a breach of the unspoken contract.
What do you mean?
We, the public, feel like we helped raise them. We saw the baby photos in People magazine. We feel like we know them. And now they were turning around and saying, no, you don't.
That's the friction. Absolutely. We aren't used to celebrities drawing hard boundaries. We're used to the illusion of intimacy. Social media accelerated that, these parasocial relationships where we think these people are our friends.
Right.
The Jolie children are effectively saying, we are not your friends. We are not your content. We are strangers.
Which is incredibly healthy, but it feels almost aggressive in the context of 2026 culture.
It is an aggressive act of reclaiming humanity. They were asserting that their lives belong to them.
The source material wraps up by calling this Angelina Jolie's most powerful legacy as a mother. Not her filmography, but this outcome. The fact that the children are grounded and intentional.
It completely redefines success.
Yeah.
For decades, success for a celebrity parent meant your kid became a star too. It was about replication. You build a dynasty, the Kardashians, the Smiths, the Beckhams. Success was visibility.
Right. If your kid isn't famous, did you even succeed?
Exactly. But this narrative flips that on its head. It argues that success is autonomy. The fact that these young adults are shaping their own identities separate from the massive shadow of their parents.
Yeah.
That is a much harder architectural feat than just getting them a casting agent.
Intentional living is the phrase used. It sounds a bit like therapy speak, but in this context, I think it means they aren't just drifting.
It means they aren't reacting. Most celebrity kids spend their 20s reacting to their parents' fame, either embracing it or rebelling against it loudly. Intentional implies they are charting a course that isn't defined by the parents at all.
They're paddling their own boat.
To use a cliche, yeah, they really are.
But practically speaking, how does this even work in 2026? We live in a surveillance state.
Yeah.
Everyone has a camera. AI, facial recognition is everywhere. How do you actually stay private? The source doesn't really get into the technicals, but I'm curious about your take.
It's a great question. The how is likely a mix of legal aggression. NDAs are likely standard for everyone entering their orbit, and simple lifestyle choices.
It's like what?
You don't go to the places where the cameras are. You don't geotag your location. You maintain a digital footprint that is functionally zero.
Which goes back to the wealth point we talked about. You have to be able to afford the private villas, the private travel. You can't just fly commercial and expect anonymity.
Correct.
Yeah.
But plenty of people have that money and still choose the fame. They go to the restaurant where they know the Paps hang out. The Jolie kids seemingly avoid those zones entirely. It's a discipline.
It brings up this idea of the new narrative that's mentioned in the text. The idea that a high-profile marriage and divorce didn't lead to a collapse.
We love a tragedy. We love the rise and fall. This story denies us the fall.
Right.
It says, actually, the divorce happened. It was hard, but they adapted. It challenges the assumption that a broken home produces broken children.
That's a powerful reframing. We usually write off kids of divorce, especially messy public ones, as damaged goods.
And the source argues that the damage was mitigated by that structure and emotional safety we talked about. They replaced the public narrative with a private pond.
I keep coming back to the silence. In a world that is so noisy, so desperate for attention, their silence feels loud.
It creates a vacuum. And in that vacuum, they get to be whoever they want. We don't know who they are dating. We don't know their political hot takes. We don't know what they eat for breakfast.
And because we don't know, they are free to change their minds.
That is the ultimate luxury in 2026, the ability to make a mistake without an audience. Think about it. If you tweet something stupid at 19, it haunts you at 25.
Oh, forever.
Forever. If they do something stupid, it stays in the room.
That is profound. We tend to think of luxury as goods, bags, cars, but the ability to be imperfect in private, that's the real status symbol.
It's the one thing you can't buy off the shelf. You have to build it and you have to defend it.
So let's zoom out. Most of our listeners aren't dealing with Brad and Angelina as parents. We don't have paparazzi helicopters over our houses. Why does this matter to the average person in 2026? What's the takeaway here for you?
I think it's about the value of the offline life.
Yeah.
We are all feeling the fatigue of the performance. We all feel the pressure to curate our lives for an audience, whether that's 1 million followers or just our coworkers on LinkedIn.
The personal brand fatigue, I feel it every single day.
Exactly. The Jolie children are an extreme example, but they prove a point. You don't have to share it for it to be real. In fact, maybe it's more real if you don't share it.
It validates the idea of opting out.
It reframes missing out as protecting in. You aren't missing out on the likes. You are protecting your peace.
And if the children of the most famous woman in the world can manage to keep something for themselves, maybe we can too.
We can certainly try. We can put the phone down. We can choose not to post the picture. It's a micro-rebellion.
Micro-rebellion. I like that. So, to recap the mission of this deep dive, we looked at the Jolie Pitt family in 2026. We expected a circus. We found a library. Quiet, studious, contained.
We found a group of people who use their immense privilege to buy the one thing fame usually destroys: normalcy.
And in doing so, they completely flip the script on what it means to be a celebrity child. They aren't the stars of the show. They are the writers of their own lives.
And script is marked confidential.
As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought to chew on, something that really stuck with me while reading this source material. We live in a world that is obsessed with access. We want to see everything, know everything, track everything. In that world, is privacy becoming the ultimate flex? Is being unknown the new, being famous?
In an age of overexposure, mystery is the only thing that holds value.
Something to think about before you post that next story. Thanks for diving in with us. We'll catch you on the next one.